All right, welcome to the Daria Hamrah Podcast. Today, I'm really excited, not just because it's a topic that is very hot currently with artificial intelligence and technology, but the person I'm about to interview is one of my best friends, if not the best friend that I had in middle school and high school back in Germany, Arno Selhorst. Welcome to my podcast. It's so good to have you touch base and catch up after what, 30 years or so. It's incredible how time flies. But so Arno, just for those of you who would like to know who is behind this person, he's at the forefront of AI and technology. He's mainly his passions are innovation, and that's where he shows his skills really. And currently, he works for the Deutsche Telekom, and he's extensive professional background includes positions as in companies as Publicis Sapient, a Guy Levi, Math or Advertising, to pronounce it right, Advertising and Schultz and Friends. But he's an expert in the field of metaverse, XR, and immersive experiences, while having a strong focus again where his passion is on current future innovations such as generative content creation, AI model making, and prompt engineering. But behind this extremely talented and intelligent person is, from my personal perspective, we grew up together, an extremely kind-hearted, passionate, and super funny, actually, person. I remember when we were in high school, often we had to be sat separately in the classroom because we were just up to no good. I guess because I don't know, were the teachers boring? Were the subjects not interesting enough for us, or were we just being kids? I don't know what it was, but we often fooled around, and it's surprising that actually we have jobs today. But that goes back to, I think, if you follow your passion, if you follow your heart, success is a given. And that's something I always communicate in my podcast: to follow your passion, follow your heart, and don't listen much to naysayers. Some of them might be your professor's teacher, hopefully not your parents, but just follow your heart. So without further ado, welcome Arno Selhorst from Germany. Arno, I have a big question for you. Is humanity, or mankind as we know it, over with artificial intelligence? Are they going to take over? And is this like doomsday, or how do you see this? What's going on out there?
Yeah.
Everybody's panicking, and half of the people are panicking and half of them are excited. Which camp do you belong to?
Exactly. Daria, first of all, thanks for taking me in the call. And I was really looking forward to that call as well. It's been amazing to see you also on LinkedIn developing and doing those podcasts. I'm following each of them, obviously. I'm a big fan. And
Thank you.
Getting the chance to talk here is really, really big for me. It's really
Awesome.
nice. So thanks a bunch. And thanks for taking me down memory lane.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking to you.
Me
Like,
too, me too.
flashback 30 freaking years ago. It's so weird. Yeah. And you look exactly the same.
Yeah, the same beauty. Yeah, I have my oil painting, exactly the same. Oil painting in the basement that is getting older instead of me. That's
right.
Yeah. So, well, now getting to your question, I think it's a question that is typical of our binary society. Yeah. Mm-hmm. We think 1 or 0, yes or no, for or against us, but there are so many gradients. So I like to speak about the human condition as not a binary condition, but a quantum condition. Yeah, there are many gray areas in between. So I wouldn't be able to answer if we're doomed or not, if it's going to be a dys or a utopia. What I can say is that with every new invention and innovation comes human responsibility. And I think the way we get through that story and through this time is by maybe not triggering the big filter, meaning the big filter would be we end our human civilization because there's some screw up we do as humanity. And we would really take that opportunity with AI to go the next step. So it's not really doomsday per se, but it could turn out to be doomsday if we don't take that responsibility we are getting now serious. And that's why, for example, Deutsche Telekom has their own digital ethics team, where I'm also honored to be a guest once in a while and talk to, for example, Maike Scholz, who is running, spearheading this. And we are doing talks internally in the company. I've been present at more than a dozen talks dealing with digital ethics of specifically AI and of course other technologies. And we really take care that it's not just, philosophical blah blah, but this is very, very important. Some people even say there will be something like an AI psychiatrist in the future that takes care that that AI develops according to plan, which is a psychological question, basically. So we have to take, as humans, we have to take that role very serious when we deal with and maybe eventually talk to an AI in the future.
Well, I want to dive deeper into that, because there's so many questions that I have for you based on cultural diversity, based on societal diversity all over the world. How are you going to control ethical question? How are you going to dictate or determine ethical questions globally as there's societal variances, and AI is going to be a global thing on the internet? Like which society, which country, well, based on religion and culture, gets to control those ethical boundaries? So that's another question, because it's a global thing. Or are we going to have different AI models in different countries and cultures? So that's something I want to dive deeper into. But before we dive into it, because we also have audience that might not necessarily be versed in what we're talking about right now. So how would you explain artificial intelligence to someone with no background in the field, like your grandmother, or to a 5-year-old? Like, how would you explain artificial intelligence? I mean, because the first time I heard about artificial intelligence, I thought of Jarvis from Marvel's, from Iron Man and stuff like that.
Yeah, good question. I think that definition will and does change with time. So when they published Siri for Apple products, they said that's AI. It's an AI-driven assistant.
Alexa.
But what can you, Alexa, Google Assistant, yeah? They were published years ago already, and people were talking about AI. Now they seem like a poor man's joke compared to what we have right now. Yeah,
it's terrible.
Our definition of AI already switched. It's changed. So I can only give you a brief input what I think personally right now would define of AI. And I would say AI in the current form, for example, ChatGPT, is a very smart simulation of human interaction. It simulates a human answering your prompts, your questions, your what you write. But as I said, it's a very smart simulation.
And how does it do that? Because how can it talk back to you? Like, how does it understand? These are they call them LLMs, large language models. Explain that for a layman. Like, what is that? Like, how does it know how to speak? How does it know how to comprehend?
So for those who didn't try it yet, so we're talking about ChatGPT right now. General pre-trained transformer, that's GPT, and chat means it's coming in the form of a chat interface that is super simple to handle, and people can just type in the chat line, like you use WhatsApp, for example. They write down something in the chat, then press enter, and then the machine answers to what you wrote. That's the background of your question, obviously. How does it find the answers? And that's really interesting. You have to see there's context, and then there is finding appropriate answers to that context. And the context is created by the human input. So if I write down a question, that sets up the context, and the order of my words and letters in those words basically set something like a challenge to the system. And now the system tries to find out what is the most logical vector that goes through this line of words and into an answer. So what would be the most common answer to this kind of question. So if you...
And how does it get its information from, though, to get the answer?
Yeah. It's a large language model, as was said. So it's a huge model that is based on scraping the internet, different parts like Wikipedia, forums, etc. And what is consolidation in the model is not tables of exactly these words. It's more of a system that is built on that context and a model of these words. And that model enables me to answer to a question in the same message. I put out the same message, but maybe differently written. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a typical chatbot. You ask one question and then the answer would always stick the same. So if I say, what's the weather in San Francisco right now? And this thing would have internet access, it would guide you towards Google, for example, and Google would find out what the weather is, and then they play it back to the large language model, and it refits the answer into a large language model answer, and then pushes it towards the reader. So it's always about models picking up on structure rather than real final content. And that's how also those visual systems work. They don't steal images one-to-one, but they learn how an apple looks, and then they try to model an apple if you write down apple. For example, Stable Diffusion does this by diffusing an image first, and then creating the new image that you prompted from that, let's say, TV scramble. Yeah, so it's a kind of snow effect that enables you to recreate an image. It's a technical process, but the same is with the wording. So if you put in words into ChatGPT, triggering the large language model to answer, then it finds a vector with the most common sense answer possible.
And all that information, all that information it gathers from the internet. Is that correct?
Yeah, but not live. But for example, ChatGPT by OpenAI, they have their own trained model that is kept from the internet. It doesn't connect to the internet. It's just, that's why its status is, I think, to the end of 2021, winter 2021, and then they didn't train it any further with new data. Yeah. So
why is that? That's been almost 2 years.
Yeah. So I can only guess. I don't have insights, obviously, into Sam Altman's strategy, whatever. But my good guess would first be they want to try it in a closed space. If there's a blast radius, it's inside that space and not outside. And also, they must have, maybe that's my guess, a pretty healthy respect for what they're creating. Because, for example, GPT-4 was presented to Mr. Gates last year in August, September. He knew about this month before we saw it as a public. Now you can imagine if they published, or if they showed GPT-4, which is super powerful already, last August, September, you can only guess what they're working on right now. So keeping that off a connection to the internet might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it just works.
Because not only that, I feel like the internet is full of all the information that anyone can put into it, meaning you can easily manipulate or by putting false information. And then I can imagine how an AI model like that could easily get confused or put out the wrong information. Obviously, I don't know how much it can reason or how much it can extrapolate, but you know, I would assume that would be subject to a lot of manipulation and just false information.
But also that's why OpenAI took really big care of not just creating a model and let it self-learn and train, but it was human guided. So there were lots of humans verifying or disagreeing with the information the model put out in version 3.5 and also definitely in version 4, with the also added input by the humans to version 3.5 when it was published. So it's a mixture of self-learning and human curated system. And you can put as much fake news in it as you like. If there are humans on the other end verifying or not verifying the information the model learns, I think we're on a good path. And these humans obviously can't be biased themselves, which is the big problem with all AI systems, because they're still done by humans. And even if they self-train and self-develop themselves, they are founded and rooted in human creation. And we all have our biases, no doubt. And getting this out of the system is super, super hard. And it's called also, as far as I know, the alignment problem. So creating AI that aligns with human values and perception. Yeah. And that's a really tough thing. I'm not really the technical person to talk about how that process works, alignment, but it's really a big challenge to everyone who deals with AI. That's what I got from reading the posts about it and some articles. But if the system, like, for example, let's take Bing. Yeah, the Bing bot is based on GPT-4. And funny enough, it was already running with, as an engine, basically, with GPT-4 weeks before GPT-4 was published to the public. So Microsoft included and tested it basically on humans already before it was
without them knowing.
Without them knowing, man. But that's, I mean, they're not alone. Facebook did this as well. They did A/B testing with humans without their acknowledging and stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Bing connects internet with the model. So they exactly do that. You can search current stuff using GPT-4 with the Bing chatbot. And that is super helpful. And of course, now it comes your point, but how does it work with fake news? And I think what's true for us humans dealing with machines in the past is also true now. Always verify your sources. Sure. You can't just blindly. That's exactly what we all learned dealing for 10 years and more now with Google. You won't click on the advertised results.
Yeah, but that's like telling someone to watch their diet and go to the gym and live healthy. You know, everybody knows intellectually they're supposed to do that. No one freaking does it, and that's human nature. You know, like even reporters have become headline readers. I mean, the perfect example is that I don't know if you watched that BBC interview with Elon Musk where the reporter basically was a headline reader himself, and it became evident that he was very ill prepared. He didn't even have example for his questions. So I feel as a society, we're getting lazier and lazier because we want things fast and we want to put the minimum work and effort into anything we do, and we want to have maximum results. And I think to me, it's very ideological to expect people to do their due diligence and to fact check things. It's just not going to happen. And people that know that, which are the powerful people, that's how they control the masses, because they know they're not going to fact check. They just put one message out there, and they know that, as you said yourself, we're all tribal, and we look at everything binary, and it's this or that. It's so easy to manipulate people, and that's the fear for me, is that, like you said, there's few people that control these AI models. Essentially, they're playing God, if you so will. And yes, I mean, I listened to Sam Altman's interviews and some podcasts he talked, and he seems like a very honest, genuine person. But again, you know, who really then knows how he's going to evolve once he tastes a little bit of power? And, you know, we're humans at the end of the day. We're all influenceable by time, by space, by society, by power. Like you said, we all succumb to our personal biases without even knowing. And so that's the one thing that listening to him talking, which is, by the way, interestingly, his own fear as well. He's kind of scared of himself. You know, if you listen to Sam Altman's interviews, he's not just scared of, he even said, we should be surprised if he wasn't scared, which tells a lot about how much self-awareness he has himself. But he's also, I feel, worried about how he's going to handle it in the future, and how that's why we should have more oversight from multiple people, and maybe even the government. And that's when it becomes concerning to me when the government gets into this, because the government has a different agenda than humanity or people. And we've all seen that. We just look at history. And so I'm not sure if that's the right person. So in your mind, I mean, you guys have discussions at Deutsche Telekom and thousands of meetings, as you've said. When you have discussed, and now we kind of segue into the ethical questions and potential risks or drawbacks associated with increasing presence of AI into our lives. How do you think we can mitigate these concerns?
Yeah. So power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when Sam Altman, I think he said that also in the Lex Fridman interview, which is awesome, by the way, and super long, but
I watched it.
I always say, instead of Netflix, it's my hashtag on LinkedIn, when I say, like, guys, you really have to watch that instead of some stupid entertainment. You really learn a lot listening and watching that interview. Also, his mimic, at times he looked a little bit like a robot. But anyways, I don't think he was a simulation. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm a simulation, I don't know. But anyways, I think that if you look at what's happening right now on the cutting edge in AI, the people at least are trying to get a piece of the cake, and maybe even more, because what is happening now, the models get distributed. First, funnily enough, they were distributed on some torrent. It was a kind of half legal, half-as legal thing, because it was a model by, as far as I know, Meta, the Llama model. They published something, and it was actually only for people who applied to use it, that got the rights to use it, and then somebody leaked the whole model, and it just got into the web, and then Stanford worked with it, with an alpaca. It's a derivative of Llama. Then some people turned it into a not just command line interface, but a really graphical user interface for PCs. And what's happening is people are starting to use large language models, or maybe smaller language models, on their own PCs and Apple devices. If you have an Apple M1 chip, you can easily run super great large language models, not on some big cloud computer, but on your own. And the same happened already half a year ago with Stable Diffusion. So these are, for those who don't know, it's AI driving image generation. And one of the most famous is Midjourney right now, but there's also a method, or Midjourney also is based, as far as I know, on diffusion, Stable Diffusion, but Stable Diffusion has its own PC visual interface called Automatic 1111. And I installed this last winter, and I was just blown away how easy I can create images. All the images that look kind of funny on my LinkedIn are basically created by myself with Stable Diffusion. And there are so many models, and can mix and match it. And these nobody would have imagined being able to create this on their own machines only a couple of months before last year in August. So last year, May, there was, for example, DALL-E, also by OpenAI, creating images by, you prompting some image. And you could have never thought.
So for those of you who don't know, you can kind of type a teddy bear on a skateboard in Times Square, and then within 2 seconds it generates that picture, and you can have it made that picture either realistically or as a painting on a canvas, or you can tell it paint it as if Van Gogh painted it, and it will paint it in Van Gogh style. Like anything, you can give it any prompt and it does it. It's incredible, guys. If for those of you who don't know what we're talking about.
We have to take. I can screen share later on and give
you it's. I mean, I'm just blown away. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it, because you can generate, and that's, I think, for me, is where the true creative people are going to get exposed. I think it's people say, well, artists are going to die. I think actually it's the opposite. I think the mechanical aspect of artistry, yes, maybe, but the creative part, which is the actual mind of an artist, is going to flourish, because they can translate their ideas more efficiently and quickly into reality and kind of test it. And I think it's almost like putting a cell that is dividing and becoming into an organ or an organism, fast forwarding that cell division, as a scientist speaking now, and getting to the final organism instead of 9 months within like 2 seconds,
Yeah,
and so that's for me the fascinating part. And so I don't
definitely.
know how you see that.
Yeah, definitely. Just one more word for how I would approach that ethical dilemma. That was our starting
Yeah,
question.
exactly.
And just to give you a quick answer to that before we switch back to what you just said, I would put all my money into open source at that point of the developments. You can see each day there's a new model and a new way how you can implement large language models on your own PC. They are not perfect by any means. They are way below par of OpenAI's ChatGPT. Definitely, they're not as powerful, but
Sure.
they are driven by a huge global community right now. And if you look at GitHub, the developer platform, you can see the top apps or top repositories right now are all these things that are dealing with having a smart agent, a chat agent running on your own machine. They sometimes use your GPU, so your graphic card. Sometimes they use your CPU. It's different right now, but some people even get it running on an old Android phone, or on a Raspberry Pi. So these things are going in all directions right now. Once it's in the public domain, people are just running with it, and nothing can beat that public power, that people are curious and that they work on this. So I have pretty big confidence that this dilemma will go in that direction, and then there's not so much power in one hand anymore. One caveat, and that is now I'm talking as an innovation person again. If somebody has an edge on an innovation, and that innovation is capable of optimizing itself with every step even better and more efficiently and faster, they just go the hockey stick way. They go exponential, while we are still in a more like traditional way.
Linear, yeah.
Linear, thanks. I was looking for that word, linear way. And I see some danger here that no matter how much we care in the public sector, that companies, and actually it's the only company I can think of right now, OpenAI, they just blast through every wall there is, because they were already advancing while others were still scrambling together their Siri products and projects. And that's, from my point of view, a real danger. If OpenAI would have stayed open as they claimed to be and publish all the code, I think we would have a different status right now already. And I think it would have helped them themselves also, but they chose to go another way, which is their business and strategic decision. I don't blame them for it, but I think there could also be another way. For example, Stability AI, with Emad as their CEO, they are going the public domain, the open source way when it comes to stable diffusion. And I think that's, in the long run, a really smart move. And I just super support them to go that way. And they engage a community. They want to create AI with a huge community globally. And I think that's a super great approach to it. Okay, now back to the stable diffusion excitement and the image creation excitement. I'm very excited about it. I also see the potential for people like me. I know that you, at least in school, Daria, were a great artist, and you did
Thank you.
lots of
Yes, and that's why
stuff.
I'm fascinated. So thanks for mentioning that. That's why I'm thinking in those terms, because one of the challenging part when I was majoring in arts and doing involved with arts was it wasn't really the putting the paint on the canvas or creating the image. It was coming up with an idea what to paint, how to communicate a message through an image. So the creative aspect, which was the fun part actually, because the rest was more doing it, but coming up with the idea is creative. And a lot of times you had an idea and you put it on canvas or on paper and then you didn't like it, but in the meantime you wasted like 6 hours. So I think artists are going to become more efficient and they're going to get to the product they wanted initially much more quickly, because they can test things at a much faster pace.
Absolutely. I mean, look at what music. it's all about. There are those who do electronic music. I have Fruity Loops on my PC. Once in a while,
You're still involved with music?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
still drumming a little bit once in a while.
Nice.
And I still have my trusty Korg M1 here next to me right now.
For those of you who don't know, Arno and I in high school, we used to play in a band, and he's a amazing drummer, and since I've known him, and it was
Not
so much
anymore.
fun going in. I remember hours in the basement, and that was, what the fun part was when we were in your basement, coming up with ideas of music, and that interchange and exchange of ideas was stuff that I till today I miss. Part of the creation, the creative part of it. But
yeah, true. I mean, so what I was going to try to say is comparing music making with these image technologies we have nowadays with Stable Diffusion. Today, there are still people who do classic music. For example, there's a huge, great violin player in Germany called Liv Migdal. She's super young. She was playing violin with the age of 2. She got to play violin, and then with 3, she was running around like other kids with teddy bears. She was running around with a
kind of like Alma Deutsche, same thing.
Exactly, same thing. And till this day, she does classic violin music, and immensely cool, immensely good. On the other hand, you have digital artists, like electronic music artists, which I wholly respect.
100%.
Maybe the same, 100% the same. And they both are in their terrain, and everybody has their fan audiences. And some audience even might like both, like me. I like electronic music and I like classic violin music. Yeah. So what I'm trying to get is there will be virtual digital artists. Like, for example, I don't know how to draw the stickman. Yeah, I don't know. But I can create quite decent images with Stable Diffusion because of the ideas I put behind it and the way I craft the prompts, etc. So I'm not an artist because of that, but I try to do some stuff here and there. But there's people who solely focus now, as you said, creatives who have really a professional background in in the creative industry, who start to create not just images but also videos. With, for example, Runway. Runway does video via prompts, etc. And they just a couple of days ago, there was one person who came out with a super cool short movie about this with their technology in the background working. So my point is, I don't think it's one or the other. Again, it's not a binary thing.
Yeah.
It'll be everything. It'll be those who do virtual digital art. It'll be those who do the classic, paint on canvas going crazy art, then the classical artists, etc. And it will all be fine. There is still radio today, even though we have internet, even though we had real media in the beginning. We have all that, and we humans are more than just this or that, and that's for me so important. There are two things to get across this: that we are not binary, we are not machines, we are quantum human beings, we are being quantum beings, and that it's all up to us how we use that technology. You can use a stick to kill somebody or to build a house. It boils down to that basic truth. And that's, again, for here, those digital images, they are maybe as good as the intention behind them.
I think it's we just have to look at history. Same thing when TV came out, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago. People thought the world is going to go under, that everybody can influence you. Everybody was watching TV. And then the internet came out. People were laughing at it, and people were demonizing it. Now, like, we can't imagine our lives without the internet. And to me, the ChatGPT is kind of like a combination of, the Google search and all that information that is in it, except you don't have to read through it. It just populates it already for you. It gives you the answer that is formed based on your question. And I think you pointed something that's very important. I think learning how to input proper prompts to get the proper result, I think that's the key. I think that's the one thing as a society or as people we have to learn. And I think the perfect way to learn it is just by practicing it. And I can see that myself. Within only a month having used it, my prompts are much, like, initially I didn't know how to ask it. And now I understand how to ask it, that it needs context, that it needs a format, that it needs some maybe information about myself, or basically context from all angles. And I think that's what we have to learn in how to use AI, as opposed to just rejecting it and be fearful of it and demonizing it, like with all new technology we have done in the past. I think this is not any different. And to me, I'm an optimist by nature. I say that in every podcast. I believe in a good in humans. I think the good humans out of the 7-something billion people in this world will always outrun and outdo the bad people.
Absolutely.
And because,
Absolutely.
if you look at humanity, I mean, if you look at anything in history, whenever push comes to shove, and whenever humans were faced a challenge that threatened their very existence, all of a sudden enemies used to come together and fight for the same cause. And that's just the nature of us. And we get too much distracted by negativity, fear mongering, which is typically done by people that have a different agenda. And that's why I love talking to you about it, as you're passionate about it, to give people a true perspective, a hopeful perspective about AI, how we can use it to our advantage, advance our society. It's just part of the evolution. It's like before penicillin, we used to die getting a scratch out in the woods. That's why our life expectancy is higher. And now we survive, and so it's not any different. It's like demonizing penicillin. Of course we're going to live
Good
longer.
example. Yeah. Good example.
And so I think as humans we need perspective to understand whatever there is that we don't initially. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's bad. And
I give you one example for that.
Yeah,
One
go
example
ahead.
for that, because a couple of days ago I was experimenting with ChatGPT 4 and coding. And I'm not a developer. I told you before we started the talk that I'm not really a technical person. And we have in our team, we have the tradition that we publish a newsletter internally about innovation every week on Friday. It's a colleague of mine who does this, Dr. Stefan Kohn. And the interesting thing is, I wanted to create a program in Python that automizes that process of finding innovation in the telco business in terms of customer service and the sales, and then get this program to browse the internet, find the most important current stuff, and then consolidate it into a newsletter. And I didn't have any clue how to program this. And the interesting thing is, working with ChatGPT, I got together a program that works kind of right now. It still needs polishing.
Sure.
But the cool thing is, and that's where I'm thinking technology can be so cool and good. The engine ChatGPT not just gave me the code and that's it. It commented what the code does, where it does what, and it told me why it decided to do that, so I could learn while writing the code.
So it taught you, actually.
It taught me. It was like a super, super patient mentor who took me by the hand and told me, Arno, now you have to do this, maybe. And then when I got an error message, I just pasted it into the chat and said, hey, dude, what can I do? I talked to it like a buddy. And it answered me like, sorry, yes, there was a mistake, but maybe I can do it this or that way. And this way I was learning how to, I'm not a coder now, but for 2 days work, but I was learning to get a feel for how the logic works within Python, the loops that it creates, etc., that it calls up other programs, that it uses a style sheet, blah, 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 all these things, that it summarizes this in an HTML body, etc. And it was so cool to see that. Yeah. And I could ask 100 times and it would answer me very patiently 100 times. Yeah. I could even write like something like,
you can't do it with a human being.
No, I said like, sorry, I seem dumb, but I don't really get it. Can you explain it for a 9-year-old? And then this thing explained it to me like I'm a 9-year-old, and it worked. Now I understood.
Well, Einstein said if you can't explain something to a 5-year-old, that means you haven't really understood it yourself. Yeah, so you're right. That's beautiful. And I did it actually because I tested it, and one of the things, just having a conversation about anything, how to raise proper children, how to solve conflicts with a teenager, and the amount of compassion and empathy with which it answered my questions, it was very heartwarming. I just wanted to continue a conversation with it. And I think, so then I thought, like, there's so many people that maybe are struggling in life. They're maybe lonely, they're depressed.
Yeah.
They could have a conversation with ChatGPT and actually get help. I mean, think of it. And so one might say, of course, a naysayer is going to come right away and say, well, that's not the same thing as if you talk to a real human. Well, guess what? That person that is depressed in their basement, has no human contact, is not talking to anyone right now. So they might as well talk to someone. Let it be ChatGPT. And because maybe ChatGPT can help them gain perspective, and maybe that person will perceive ChatGPT as a non-biased person and maybe be more open and willing to listen to it, as opposed to a human being that they look at that human being as, well, you're just tricking me, or you just want to say that because this and that, and eliminate that bias. So I think it opens a whole nother world and door for that and other stuff.
And then definitely. So I think but still, I agree. And I think before people get lonely in their basements and they don't dare to talk to others, which is totally a case, I think, for a lot of people, they might as well talk to an AI. The only caveat here is, of course, an AI up to today cannot replace a real human, like, let's say, psychologist. We shouldn't leave out that little fact. And also, remember what I said in the beginning. The engine takes a vector, which is the most probable answer. So it answers as a response to how you ask that question.
True.
And if you have a tendency in your question already, it might jump up to that and then answer like, horrible thing, but if you ask it, should I kill myself? I don't know what ChatGPT would answer, but I would be a little bit careful with that, because you can, let's say, prompt hack these systems still. And depending on how you ask questions, it might pick up on this and then answer answer in a way that it thinks you might want to hear the answer. So it might be dangerous.
Good point.
So you have to be a bit careful with that. But I think in the long run, like, AI already identifies skin cancer with, I think, 98% or something. It's fantastic what's happening in that sector. It finds new chemical. What is that? You're the scientific person here. It finds,
you're talking about, like, imaging, like radiology,
folding AI folding the proteins. It finds new proteins, right? So these are all things that are scientifically proven, and they're running cool. But in terms of conversations, I think there's still some way you have to keep up. But look at the movie Her. I don't know. So did you see that movie?
Yes, I have.
I saw it a couple of days again because I thought it was a time now we should all watch that movie, rewatch that movie, and think how much.
That's why I watched it.
How much it is a documentary already. But the end is very eerie. It's not like that system really has a heart, even so it says it has it doesn't have a freaking heart. It just simulates to have a heart, because it's running so many 3,600 conversations at the same time, and it tells everyone in there that it fell in love with them. So there's no worth to it anymore. And that's the human spark. And as much as I'm a fan of technology, you know that, and by my passion, how I'm talking about technology, I love it. But at the same time, also people like my wife, they get me back on the ground, saying, okay, let's get founded in reality again. And not only her, but I think we have to find a good balance. Again, it's not 1 or 0, it's somewhere in between. We are quantum beings.
I think that's a good point. It's not either or, it's more of an assistant than a replacement. And that's how I think we should look at it, in perpetuity, as an assistant, because you can't replace humans, I believe. You can replace human tasks, but you can't replace the human itself.
For example, one more thing, then I thought, but do you know Replica? It's a chatbot. Replica,
no, I don't.
A chatbot with replica with the K instead of a C. Replica.
No.
Replica, I think, .ai. And they developed a chatbot years ago already. And now they implemented GPT, I think 3.5 or even 4, I'm not sure. And if you search the web for users who talk or tell stories about their replica, because that chatbot, the more you interact with it, the more it personalizes in its form, how it talks to you.
So it learns.
And there are people, it absolutely learns, it remembers stuff and so forth. So it remembers every conversation you have with it. You even
in
have a little
perpetuity?
diary. In perpetuity. And people publish love stories they have real, genuine connections with that chatbot, with their chatbot.
That's
so
incredible.
It's incredible.
What is it based on? It's a double-edged sword, though, because if you're not a stable person, you could easily be dependent on it, and it could, go downhill from there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and there are horror stories about this as well. So I'm not going to these. You can read them on the web. Everybody.
Wow, interesting.
And the thing is, they now published a virtual reality and an augmented reality edition add-on to that. So you could basically put on your goggles and step into a room, and your chatbot would stand in front of you, and you could talk to it. It would recognize your voice, and it talks back. You don't have to type anything. So you talk to that entity, which is a digital entity, and it knows you.
And what is it? What is it? Is it based on ChatGPT, or what is it based on?
It uses GPT. I think it uses GPT. I think Da Vinci, but I might be wrong. So
one of those AI models.
Everybody's listening now, please bash me for this or write me in a DM which system it's based on. But I think I know for a fact it's GPT, but I don't know which version.
Got you. And that is available now.
It has been available for a long time already, and they use different engines for this. And it is basically the founder. She lost her I think husband or boyfriend. I'm not sure if they were married already, but he died. I think. Yeah, he died untimely, and she collected all the written stuff he had and tried to create a reproduction, basically, of him, in form of a chatbot. That was the beginning of Replica.
Wow!
And that's why it's so personalizable, because that's ingrained in the basics of that chatbot. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
It's funny. It sounds so futuristic, but it's happening.
It's happening.
Now, we already touched on this, but I want you to comment on it as an innovations person that is a master in problem solving. Some people worry, obviously, what we talked about AI taking over jobs. Like going on social media, I read a lot of comments, and I like reading comments because it tells me a lot about our current state and the sentiment of our society. And a lot of people are worried that it's going to take away their jobs, leading to unemployment. And in some places in the world, unemployment is already high. How do you, as an innovations manager and problem solver, think we can strike a balance between AI integration and maintaining human job opportunities? Understanding it's just the nature of the beast that some jobs are going to be obsolete, just like when the internet came out, just like when email came out, they've become obsolete. But how do you see that AI being integrated into current job opportunities and creating future job opportunities, so that people kind of have an idea how they can evolve with it, whether they're currently working or someone in college trying to think what field they're going to get into based on AI, and that they're going to still have a job in the future.
I mean, you already hinted at it. I think that it's working in the future. We'll be working with, from my point of view, with AI. It's going to be not just a crutch, but a kind of co-pilot that we're working with. That's my impression I get right now.
I love that analogy.
But let's be honest. It's also going to be a kind of a jobs arms race, because as we enable AI to get better, because it's co-piloting our habits and our professions, it gets better again. And via the technological, I mean, they are basically working in light speed electronics.
Yeah.
Basically, our synapses are a bit slower, so they
yeah, a little bit.
a little bit. So they will evolve quicker and adapt faster to what we can do. So here's what I think. I think the more specialized you are right now, the more the T you are, the harder it'll get for you in the future to keep your job. It's that simple.
Interesting.
I mean, now we see multimodal systems, meaning they cannot just translate or they cannot just create images, but they can do both. These models become more widespread as we talk right now. So they go into the T of the T-shape, but still, I think it helps to be a generalist as well, because that's something AI wouldn't be able to pick up on so fast.
Give me an example for generalists versus specialists. So just for the audience to, have, reference.
So, for example, if you're a taxi driver, you're very special. You special focus on getting people from A to B. But as we all know, autonomous driving, that'll be soon a thing of the past.
Understood.
Now, what if that taxi driver has a look into these systems and maybe thinks beyond his or her horizon of driving a taxi, maybe creating a community around it? Jobs might be very different from what we know today. I always tell also my wife, because she knows I'm very technical orientated, but I tell her, you know what, there will be a renaissance of the romantic, and there will be a renaissance of us sitting around a campfire, because that's super authentic. And those people who can tell stories out of the hips, who can create worlds just with their words, live, not as a simulated avatar, but live, without any technological help, just because they can. I think those are people who have a big plus that's not easily replaceable by AI, which still needs a body, which still needs a presence in the room. I don't see that right now, even though there are robotics right now implementing GPT, etc. But it's still a little bit down the road. I think becoming a generalist in the way you perceive the world, and you see things that others don't see, which sounds a bit metaphysical now, but I don't mean it that way. What I said to you in the beginning, Daria, I see technological things here, like a new gadget. I see a societal development here and some cultural impact here, or a meme. And for some reason, my mind gets these things together and says, you know what? Something is brewing here. And I wonder if AI can figure that out. It might be because it's good at recognizing unstructured data, but for that, it would have a super holistic point of view of a lot of things at the same time, which I cannot imagine being able right now, that this thing can do it. But I might be wrong. Maybe in 5 years we see that it's not working. But what definitely we have to talk about is a conditional income, an unconditional income for people, because will be.
Yeah, go ahead. There will be. Sorry.
I think there will be jobs that will go, and not everybody is maybe like us, curious and eager to learn new stuff with 50 years old. And there might be people who are not that way, which is totally fine. But what the hell are they going to do if they don't get a job anymore? Those people have 50 years of job experience behind them. Why not putting them in the educational sector, getting them together with small kids, telling them about the world they grew up in, and paying them sufficiently for that job, because it's a super important, I'm super passionate about it. It's a super important contribution to society, getting older people with young people together. And this is not appreciated, at least in Germany. I don't know about the States so much, but it's not really appreciated in the way it should be. So there will be new jobs that are not engineers or, programmers or doctors that are, but that are the high paid jobs. But maybe it could also be jobs that are not so paid so high right now, but which will be crucial in the future for us as a human species, right? It's there's a lot of movement in that sector right now. And I think jobs will definitely turn and people get a different point of view on what the job should be. Like we are in the luxury, you and me, we are both doing jobs we love and it's our passion. But there are lots of people who go with, shoulders down on the Friday evening and who love the weekend, who party and then go to Monday again. That's not the way you should live your 50 years and then die. That's definitely not it. So why not giving those people a chance, getting their backs off with AI, let AI do their stupid, repetitive jobs, and then get them to something where they feel worthy in society and needed, and that's something we need more poets and philosophers.
I love your perspective, very refreshing perspective, and it's so true. I think that's why I love talking to you, because you just alluded to the opportunity as opposed to demonizing it and doing fear mongering. Oh, the world is over as we know it. And I don't know about you, but I feel, and I would like to hear your opinion, I feel this is probably the biggest technological advancement, even way beyond the internet. I always thought the internet was the biggest technological breakthrough in mankind, but I think this surpasses it by light years. It's almost the technological advancement. Everybody says we had the greatest technological advancement exponentially in the past 20 years. I agree with it, but I think this is something that is taking it to the stratosphere, because it's not just an advancement. I think it will, if not already has, changed mankind, the way we know the world, forever, and there is no turning back at this point. It's like once you've invented or discovered electricity, there's no way you can go back. I mean, you can only go back, but that's where experience comes into place, which is, what if the system shuts down? What are we going to do? Whose advice are we going to get as to how we're going to solve it, and how we're going to continue with maybe older methods? It always reminds me of, I love the show on Apple, which was called C, where there was mankind went blind because of some disease or virus, and everybody was blind and no one could see anymore. And
wow, cool concept.
Yeah, very concept. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It's a show. I don't know how many episodes it is, but it's fascinating because it shows how humans adapt to not being able to see anymore, and how the one or two few that still, for some genetic mutation, are able to see, that they didn't go blind, they were born with vision, how they have the power. But I don't want to ruin it for you, so I'm not going to tell you the end, but you have to watch it, because it's kind of like in the same realm of things that you talked about, is how important just experience of past lives is important, of delivering and giving us certain abilities just through having perspective in life, just through understanding where we came from, what we used to do, how we used to do things. So now when we're facing with a challenge, we're able to problem solve it. And I think that's how the old generation versus the new or coming generation will be able to coexist and work together as a force to make it a better place, as opposed to make it a binary place. And so watching those movies, and it's incredible, kudos to the people that write these things, write these stories. I mean, those are people with immense vision and creativity, building these scenarios that when they written it, we couldn't imagine it, but they somehow did. Or like Orwell's 1984. Interestingly, my son is reading it now in high school. We used to read it, remember? And so it's interesting to go back to these things and imagine or envision a world that has changed forever, and we probably haven't even scratched the surface of what's going to happen.
No, definitely not. I mean, I think Elon Musk said it, that we are cyborgs already, because we have that smartphone in our hand the whole time. So it's an enhancement of our, being, of our consciousness, etc., of our memory, blah, blah. And I think he's got a really good point. And the internet, what you said, which we all thought was the big thing, was maybe just the infrastructure for global communication, just by the thought of it. But it wasn't really the intelligence to communicate. And now if you see all the open source projects popping up left and right, they're called something like GPT for all, or auto GPT, or even chaos GPT. These are things that are running almost autonomously, and sometimes even autonomously, creating, planning, and ideating on the input of the user, and then elaborating, connecting in the web, etc. So we are creating these synapses now that are intelligent in the open source community. Not we, not I, but there are people who do it. And I'm just a spectator on the side, but watching this is just more amazing than watching a Netflix thriller. But seeing this now, the internet really got brains now, and gets brains. And that's where we, as you just said, have to be a bit more careful, because we shouldn't be super reliant on it. What would you do if you would lose your smartphone and never get it back, and don't have cloud backups? And if you just have to resolve to your own brain, and that's it, to your own memories. I am sometimes a bit forgetful about events in my life, so I value my own. I have a home server at home where I storage all the images and videos I take, and this is to me very dear, because there's so many things I already forgot, but I can browse back in time and watch them, which is super important. And I think if everything burns down, and if we're down to zero, we really have to be very humble again. We really do have. And I think we should never, ever forget that we should run autonomously as a human being without any technology. It's super important to never lose touch of this. Or my dad just said, because you talked about it's almost like being God. My dad told me a couple of days ago, Arno, he's also a big science fiction fan and technology fan, etc. And he said, Arno, whatever you do, but please don't attempt to play God with this. Don't, because that's something we shouldn't even think about. And I'm not maybe talking about the real God, but don't feel omnipotent because you have all that technology, because it's all dust, it's all atoms. At the end of the day, you suffice as a human as you are, as a Daria, as an Arno, as everyone. We suffice, and everybody who knows that and who respects us for the way we are knows this and treasures and values this as well. Your value comes from you within, and not from some technology. Of course, it's cool to do it, and I love gadgets.
I know, but our generation understands it. Our parents' generation understands it. We're kind of like a transitional generation, because we've seen the time before these electronics. I mean, the first gadget we had was the Walkman. I think that the first portable gadget we had was the Walkman. So we understand it, but do you think the future generation, do you think that's going to get lost? I mean, I believe that part of it is probably going to get lost unless there are some romantics out there and historians that kind of remind us, and maybe schools that still teach us basic things. Although I think it's not going to be too popular with the future generations. They're going to look at it and probably laugh at it, questioning whether we really need that stuff, not understanding because they don't have enough perspective in life yet, because they're just too young to have perspective. They haven't faced challenges in life yet. When we're young, we always look at the future and ahead. We don't look back. Older people always reminisce and look back and reflect on things. And I think it's going to be a very hard sell in the future. And it's going to come down to one or two people within a community that, just have better understanding of the value, So
you have your new job profession. You have your new job profile right there.
Yeah, I know, right?
Keeper of the past.
Exactly. And interestingly, one of the things I always talk about is like everything we're doing today is interesting. Like this podcast, it will be forever available as a library of human history. Anything we do, anything that's in the internet is going to be forever there. And so it's incredible that the sheer resource that future generations or mankind will have and can refer back to and understand where we came from is immense. And I just like there is so many historians. I fell in love with history the older I got. I hated history when we were in school. It was one of my least favorite subjects. Two subjects, history and politics. I freaking hated it. It was like a punishment. But now I'm a history buff. I love it because there's so many things we can learn from it. There's so many things if we know history, we understand why we're doing the things we're doing today, because it all is rooted in history. And I think that's why we'll never lose its value. And I feel that internet and technology will forever give us the resource to come back to it. And if we're interested in understanding it, the resource is going to be there. And what are you currently working on? What projects and technologies are you currently working on, excited about, and that you believe will have significant impact in our society in the near future?
Yeah. So let's put this into a personal, private way and a professional way. So the professional, because of course I like your podcast also because it mixes very smartly the personal and the professional. I like that. So give it a twofold answer here. So the professional part right now in our innovation department, we are all about the AI topic right now. At least two colleagues of mine are also with this. And what we're mostly doing is educating internally about the opportunities and also the risks and the caveats and the whole package basically of, let's put it in parentheses, generative and then AI, because it's not AI, let's say, for business simulations or something like that, but more the generative side of it. So the evangelizing is something, actually tomorrow I also will hold a talk again about this topic with colleagues of mine internally. And that's a big thing. And it's also very to my heart and very important that we do this because, as you mentioned, there are lots of also fears for people losing their jobs, etc. And we don't want to calm them down with some, esoteric talk, but we want to get kind of the real facts straight. Like, you always have to be, curious about the next step. You have to develop yourself. It doesn't matter if you're 20 or 50, that's your job in your job to stay on the cutting edge, because otherwise you won't go that way further down the road. Yeah.
Or someone else will do it.
Yeah. Or someone else will do it. But we also want to calm people in terms of, it's not AI that'll take the job, but it'll be the person who uses AI that'll take your job. That's also a big thing, an important thing. And then again, of course, there are colleagues of mine, for example, Dominik Grafenhofer and his team, they are working on very smart AI applications for customer service, which is super important. In that context, I can't go any further because it's also developing stuff we are still doing.
Yeah.
But
we don't want to get you fired.
No. But the thing is, they work on very exciting stuff. One thing that I can talk about is they're working on AI that goes through unstructured feedback data of our clients, of our customers, which they allowed to be taken into the database, obviously, and then creates basic consensus about topics that Deutsche Telekom is interested in. So Deutsche Telekom can ask, for example, of those people who said they don't like Deutsche Telekom, how many people don't like it because they had a bad customer experience where they had to wait. Yeah. And then you can drill down the unstructured data to that point, how many people who didn't like the service had that, for example, timing problem. Yeah. And then you can put this in that engine next to our real data that we're connecting, like how many minutes did have people to wait, to get in line for the service. And then we can put this together. And that's fantastic what Dominik and his team created there, because you do this putting together without any coding. It's just, like text you put in, and then you can ask the system questions, comparing questions about our service. These are the things that are used now for customer service. And there are lots of more stuff. That I sadly can't get into, but we are really good situated.
We'll see it in the near future. Yeah.
You will.
I'm a loyal T-Mobile user. So for those of you in the States who don't know what the Deutsche Telekom is the T-Mobile here. Okay, the T stands for telecom, and so that's the mobile service that the Deutsche Telekom has here in the States, and great service, by the way. Not trying to advertise or anything. I think I switched long time ago from AT&T because I love the fact I travel a lot, and I love the fact that I could do Wi-Fi calling, free Wi-Fi calling. I could do unlimited text, and I don't have to pay extra and get nickel and dime. So for me, like for any business, I think customer service and valuing your customers is the key to success, because otherwise we're a commodity, and people just choose stuff based on whatever.
Price.
So I think you guys are doing a good job there.
Cool.
And so I'm really proud of it myself, and being related to that. So
That's cool.
yeah, so let's get a little bit more to the person, Arno, and kind of like a rapid fire, but you can, if you can, if your answer is longer, that's fine too. But it's more of a personal things, so that the audience get to know the person behind all this innovation.
Sure.
What's the most memorable or impactful book you've read recently, and why does it resonate with you? Is it, whether it is about AI, or it could be any topic? I always like giving people, insights about books, because they always ask me that.
Yeah. You got me there. Because I forgot the title, but it was an awesome book. It's my last book I read, but there was another book. The book was about an astronaut who got stranded in space, and he got contact with an alien species, and he figures out how to communicate with it. But it was also an awesome book. But the book that I'm still evangelizing it in social media up and down, and is a book by Daniel Suarez, and it's called Demon. And it's the first of 2 parts. The second book is called Freedom TM, like the TM, Freedom and then TM up there. And those 2 books really freaking blew my mind. And I'm a little bit of a groupie for Daniel Suarez. I read other books then as well. But nice. For example, Influx is also an amazing book by Daniel Suarez. You all should read that. But read Demon first. And it's basically also about, it's not really an artificial intelligence, but it's a story about, at that time when he wrote it, the whole story concept runs on, a demon, printer demon, for example. Yeah, it reacts as soon as it gets a trigger, then it prints out. And the whole concept of his 2 books is founded on a very complex demon system that activates on specific triggers. And this way, it's kind of a domino effect. The whole thing is started by a game developer who starts this with an online role-playing game. And from that digital sphere, the developments culminate in real space. So with human agents acting for that digital demon to fill roles that the digital version cannot fulfill because it doesn't have hands and feet and, can't breathe. And in the second part, the second book, it all becomes super political and super meta societal. And man, you really, Daria, you should read that book. It's just
I will.
It's a mind bender. Daniel Suarez, Demon and Freedom TM.
Daniel Suarez. Other than the Daria Hamrah podcast, what's your favorite podcast?
None.
None. Seriously.
Seriously.
You don't listen to podcasts other than that?
Yeah, yes, I listen to your podcast because
thank you.
I just got attached to it, and I just
Arno is one of my 2 listeners, which is myself, and then he's the second one.
Exactly. No, I think you listen.
That's why I have 2 listeners. So no, but any other genre? Do you engage in any other genre than your own field?
Yeah, I started with a fighting technique, Wing Chun. So I do a little bit of body workout, which is, I started it actually because my daughter started it, and now she's far ahead of me in the classes. And
how old is she?
She's 9.
Oh, wow.
And she kicks some boys' butts.
Really?
So if they provoke her, obviously, she doesn't do it for no reason.
Yeah.
But you can imagine, as a
I wonder
father,
who she's got it from. Yeah. I wonder who she's got it from. So
yeah,
let me ask you
something.
Yeah,
That's something I really like
philosophical
to do.
questions.
Mm,
If you get to have a conversation with a historical figure today, who
mm.
would that be and what would you ask them?
I think I don't know if you call that a historical figure, but I would have liked to talk to two people in the past who were both authors, not something like a politician, historical, but who influenced a lot of what we know today. And that's the first priority would be Allen Ginsberg, and the second would be William S. Burroughs, two authors of the Beat Generation. And I kind of missed Mr. Burroughs by a year because I went to the States, as we talked about, as a high school student and later on as a university student. And I actually wanted to visit him and ask for an interview when I was a university student, but then he died a year before, and I was like, chucks, didn't work. And Allen Ginsberg the same. And I would ask them how they came up with their style and with their very unique and very innovative and very foresight-driven perspective on the human condition, both of them.
Interesting.
And because William S. Burroughs, he wrote because he also was a heroin addict most of his life, but he wrote about addiction in a way that transcends the material, the substance abuse topic. But he went all the way to power. Power is super addicting. It's more addicting. And he said this as a addict himself. He said, power is more addictive than any drug can ever be. As we talked with the context of OpenAI and Sam Altman before. And I was amazed by his, very visceral creation of these universes where people are addicted to power, to love, to their passions, too much addicted to them.
Interesting.
And this is so bold for a person in that time of the human history, when we just had some world wars being passed and people were super conservative. Something like being a homosexual was really something people were killed for, basically. And they ran into the society saying, yes, I'm a homosexual and I'm a drug addict and I write poetry. And by the way, yes, William S. Burroughs also by accident killed his wife. He shot her. So it's such a, not that I'm condoning what he did, but he had a history and a life that's so amazingly crystallized and quantum. Yeah, it is not just right or wrong. He wasn't a good or a bad author, a good or a bad person. He was so much. And Allen Ginsberg on the same way, but maybe a bit more meta and a bit more spiritual than Mr. Burroughs. But I totally admire those two people for what they created. And basically they are the fathers of the Beat Generation from my point of view, at least. And then the Beatniks ushered in the time of the hippies, which again, ushered in the whole, extreme, maybe lefty side of things in society as well, which is an important contribution also to our dialogue discourse up till today, where people are becoming binary, left and right, good or wrong or whatever. And so they really had an impact in their literature, in what they did. They even, I actually got to interview Mr. Burroughs as ChatGPT.
Yes, I was going to ask you, did you ask ChatGPT to act as Burroughs and ask the question?
Exactly. So I asked it first if it knows about the question. Yeah, I asked it if it knows about Burroughs. It said yes. And then I asked it to simulate a conversation of him being Burroughs and me being a journalist who visits him. And I kind of triggered some important steps in his autobiography, and it got it all right. And it answered absolutely flawless. And I really felt very strange.
Did you feel you got the answer you wanted?
It kind of was what I expected. But the eloquency in which it answered, and also be careful about the style, because he was a Southerner. He had a Southern drawl, and he was Southern drawl is
know.
It's super
y'all
cool.
know that.
And he got it really. I mean, the engine kind of reproduced a good simulation of Mr. Burroughs.
That's just incredible.
He explained to me the case of when he shot his wife, and that it was an accident, and that he, how he felt about it, which was all simulated, and you have to take it with a grain of salt, obviously. But it was such an amazing, strange, and wonderful experience to do that.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
really
crazy.
cool.
Well, I think
So
just going back to your comment about power.
Yeah,
I think power exposes the true nature of a human. I think because, either you're kind or either you're not. So I think once you have all the power, it will expose the true nature of your being, and it could have a amazingly positive impact on people around you, or an amazingly negative impact. And we talked about Sam Altman, and if he's a truly kind-hearted person, then I think power. I look at figures like Maria Theresa, Gandhi. Those were extremely powerful people. And by the way, by power, I don't mean like having weapons and stuff like that. I mean by having the ability to influence. That is, to me, the greatest power a human can have, the power to influence. Gandhi was one of the perfect examples to me. And so I think it can have a huge impact on humanity's future in a positive way. So I'm not afraid of someone being powerful. I'm just afraid which part is it going to expose the true being of that person. That person might not even know him or herself.
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, yeah.
For example, if we would lift an AI in the future up to a decision maker in a public scenario, would that be, some people say, yeah, that would be really an objective entity that wouldn't get corrupted by power. It's a good thing to ponder maybe sooner or later. Would that be the case? Would it not? Would it be a false prophet? Would it be, what would an AI that is involved into, for example, I don't know if it's in China. I think it's in China. They have, I'm not really sure, but there is a company, a gaming company that created an AI for their CEO and let the AI do all the decisions. And they're doing very good. They're doing very good economically. So, and does that AI also reign over who gets fired and who gets hired? I don't know, but isn't that strange that an AI, now already in HR processes, people use AI to, define who to invite and not to invite. And they, from my point of view, that's not a good thing because software is still biased. And we all know that. But having a CEO AI, wow.
Yeah. I just had lunch with a friend, and he's in tech and he's in coding and all of that stuff. And he said, since he had ChatGPT write his proposals, he didn't have a proposal rejected.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
He didn't have a single one rejected. He said because he could never write a proposal that eloquently, the proper way, based on the intentions, based on who he's writing it to, and what the context of that person or that company. He said, there's no way I could do that. And since he had ChatGPT write his proposals, he didn't have a single one rejected.
Wow.
And I was sitting there, I'm like, holy crap. Is that where we're going? Maybe because maybe it can communicate much better than we just have to put in the prompts, give it the context, and then let it do the mechanical, technical aspect, the writing and the communicating. But we're the ones prompting and putting the context for it. It still needs us to do that. It just ChatGPT's become the secretary that puts it into words such that it's being communicated in a way that the other person understands it better, so it can make a better decision whether the proposal is something they want to take on or not.
Yeah.
So just like a tool, which that's how I see it. I
look
at it as a tool.
It is a tool, and I think it's a tool everybody can wield, and those who wield it first do it best and get the proposition through.
Yes.
The thing is, once your friend enters the scenario with his own head and his own words, he has to prove that what he wrote in that proposal is really in his mind.
True.
And it's not something, he can't be a bot who just comes in and talks,
No,
So
he said he basically wrote a proposal and then he put in ChatGPT and then said, can you just improve it, for example?
Definitely. Yeah, cool.
And so
very cool use case.
then it's amazing. So it's incredible. I mean, the opportunities are endless. I think we're going to learn a lot about it, and I would love to have you on my podcast again in a year from now. So it kind of would be good to compare our conversation now with then. That would be kind of fascinating. So we're going to do it. Well, we're going to do it an annual thing. Now, the personal question. What's a personal habit or routine that has significantly improved your life, and how did you develop it? Can you think of any routine that you do or that you've done for a long time, and then how did you develop it?
Yeah, I'm a character who is
like you're an early person, morning person.
Yeah,
you work late at night like I do.
I'm a night owl through and through, which gets me into trouble sometimes, obviously. Yeah. But nighttime is the time where no phone is ringing, nobody's at the door, nobody delivers something, nothing against my family, but also there, nobody's interrupting my train of thought. It's the one time I can really think through. On the other hand, focus, definitely. So, but a daily routine that I really value, it seems a little bit banal or mundane for some, but it's my dog. So I got a boxer dog during COVID.
Did you have a boxer when we were kids? I remember.
Moppel.
Yeah, Moppel. Yeah. Oh my God.
Moppel. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, Moppel. Oh my God, I remember him.
I talked to my family for 6 years about this amazing dog I had, and then they caved in and they said, "Okay, get your dog, and get it over with." So I got this dog, and he's crazy, totally crazy boxer dog, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm walking that dog at least 3 times a day, and it gives me time to refocus and re-engage mentally, because as we are sitting here right now, and I think you can relate to this as well. At least my job is a lot of computer stuff, sitting in front of a screen. I think, your daily work is also with people a lot. I know that.
Yes.
But so that's a bit different. So you get a little bit movement. I don't.
Yeah, I
so
get a lot
getting
of
out with that dog, and it's proven that movement gets your brain cells and your creativity going 100%. As well. We're living close to the forest, so I'm going to the forest with the dog each day, maybe at least once a day, a longer walk. So this really gets me off stuff and on stuff at the same time. And that's the routine I really value and treasure and appreciate. And my dog can't get enough food to thank him for that. And also to get my head off stuff. A couple of days ago, he was trying to play with me. And I was like, no, I'm totally in a hurry. I can't play with you. And he looked at me like threw this toy in front of my feet, like, come on, you sucker, play with me.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's how they are.
On.
Yeah. You can't say no to them. Yeah.
You can't, because these big eyes.
Yeah, you can't say no to them. I'm a dog lover myself. You can't say no.
You do.
Yeah.
And while I played with that dog, I know that I didn't do him a favor, but he did me a favor.
Yes.
Because it took my mind off for a second.
100%.
Like, okay, I relax and great. Yeah. Now I can start
I can tell you, my dog teaches me patience.
Exactly.
My dog teaches me patience. It's so humbling and inspiring at the same time. So I think I love what you said. We learn more from our dogs we benefit more from them than they benefit from us. Definitely. And if you haven't listened to my podcast already with Dr. Fatui, who's one of the world's most talented and influential neuroscientist and neurologist, he talks about the importance of how just walking 1 mile a day will improve. Actually, you will grow new neurons and brain cells. And so he has a book. It's called, I think it's called Brain.
Let me write that down. Cool.
Brain. Yeah, I think it's called Brain by Dr. Fatouhi, F-O-T-U-O-U-H-I, F-O-T-O-U-H-I. And, okay. Yeah. And so, so definitely you're going to live longer if you have a dog, for sure.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your life, whether it's career or just in general your life, that has shaped the path you're on today? Is that one moment that completely changed the trajectory of your entire life and career, whether it is personal or career related, or both?
I think trajectories, I don't want to evade the question, but I'm doing. I think trajectories change all the time. I mean, some small, of course, I agree.
Yeah, I'm talking about the pivotal one. Like without that, you don't think you would be doing what you're doing today, or be the person you are today.
Yeah, I think there are two things that are not related to each other that changed a little bit of. The first changed my outlook on my professional life, and the second on personal life. The first was again, sounds mundane, but when I was in the US as a university student,
Where was that?
That was in Washington, D.C. And I was working first for CNN as an intern and then for CNBC. And while working for CNBC as an intern, I was living in a youth hostel because I wasn't on campus anymore, because I was just doing the second semester. I was just freelancing, basically. And the guy who...
What year was that? Sorry to interrupt. What year was that?
1994. One year after we finished school, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be 1994. I'm not sure.
In the 90s.
The thing is, the dude who got me into, or who employed me, asked me on my first day, "So Arno, you'll be covering our interviews on Capitol Hill about finances. So you're familiar, I take it, with camera work and stuff." And I wasn't. And I told him, "Yes, of course, doing this all the time."
Yeah.
And then he said, "Yeah, so here's the camera. You can take it back home. And then tomorrow you just come to the job and you do it." So I took the camera home.
And back then there was no YouTube.
There was no YouTube. So there was a Gebrauchsanweisung.
Manual.
What is it? A manual.
Manual. A big fat manual.
A big fat manual. And you know what I did the entire night? Panically, frantically reading through that manual, going like, "Arno, you stupid
idiot.
You know, put in swear word here. You
Yeah.
promised something. Can you really deliver?" But the thing is, you grow with these challenges, and that's the big thing. You sometimes have to kick yourself in the butt and say, "Yes, of course I can." And then just run for it and do it. And the great thing about the US, and that's why I love it, that point of job perspective I love about the States, they don't look about, at least at my time there, they didn't look at any paperwork. They just said, "Can you do it or can't you do it?"
Yeah, exactly.
And if you can do it, prove it. And I get you the chance to prove it. And I was given the chance to prove myself. And that's amazing. I love it. Here in Germany, you would have had to show picture, papers work and stuff like that. And yes, I was able to do it. The second day I was filming with him, I forgot all the videotapes in our office. So I had to run back. It was crazy. But this guy, Mr. Brown, man, I don't know what he's doing today, but he was so fantastic. And he was, he was just a great person to work with.
And so how did that change the trajectory? How was that a pivotal moment?
It changed the pivotal moment for me, that I can actually dare a bit more and not be the typical German who is too humble and just saying, "Yes, this is what I learned and this is what I can do." No, it was like, "Yes, this is what I learned, but hey, maybe I can also do this." And this to today, I'm not somebody who lies about what he can do, but I'm somebody who pushes himself. When I choose my battles wisely, of course. Getting older, I learned that as well, because there are also failures in doing that way to promise stuff. But I figured out a nice balance between sometimes under-promising, over-delivering, or something over-promising and then actually delivering on that over-promise, which is always a gamble. But I think it's worth it for me and for the person who employs me, because they can be 100% sure that I'm in there 200% with all my passion, because I want to get this working. I want to get this working, and because I promise it and I want to keep my promise. And if it doesn't work, yes, sometimes it falls and you have to pick yourself up, but basically for my job. That was a very mundane, small experience, but which
I love that.
yeah, got me further.
I love that. I always say for people to grow, for anyone to grow, you need to have courage. You need to be courageous. You have to be daring, but also you have to put in the hard work, because I don't agree when people say you have to fake it until you make it. You know, one would look at it as you faked it, but you didn't. You challenged yourself. You put yourself in a position to grow, and you went in that night, read the whole freaking manual, and you did it. And that's how you grew. And not only that, not only you accomplished that task, but you taught yourself the most important lesson in life is not to be afraid of challenges, to know that we're more we have more potential than we think, or than what society
Absolutely.
or our resume might tell us. But also,
Absolutely.
you can't do it without determination and hard work. And that's why I love talking to people like yourself, because I think it's, to me, if anybody didn't listen to any of this podcast and you just tuned into just these past 5 minutes, this could be life-changing. If you're sitting there thinking, you want to do something but you can't, or you're afraid to fail, you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And I love that. Now, if I kind of took away the last question, but that would be something I would tell myself. But I want to know, if you were to give yourself a piece of advice to someone just starting out in your field, what would that be and why?
Yeah. There was a part in my life where I kind of listened more to others who went that probable path down already, and went to seminars, listening to people. For me, it was at the time journalism. And they said, yeah, first you have to do this, then you have to do that. And after that, you might be able to do this. And then you're ready for that. And I followed this in parts first. And then I, at one point, said, screw all this. This is not my passion, is something different, which I can't really identify right now. But I don't want to go down that road, because I see a lot of people trying and trying and trying, and it doesn't work. And also, it's not exactly what I need. And that's what you said, what changed the trajectory of my life. That's the second, the personal part. And that has to do a lot with my wife, who told me one day, you know what, Arno, you're good in talking, you're good in writing. Why aren't you doing advertisement? Why aren't you doing being a copywriter? You write so much, you talk so much, you can present, a ball pen and make it look like an epiphany.
I remember that's what I always admired you for in high school. You were just an amazing writer, communicator, and I always wish I could. I totally remember that, and totally wholeheartedly agree with your wife on that.
Oh man, thanks a bunch. No, but that's really that was her input. That's why I got into advertising, because of my wife. And that moment, she contributed to my inner change, that I should follow these passions and stick to that, and stand behind this, and not being like, yeah, there's some hobby thing I'm doing and stuff. No. Yes, I am a little bit of a computer nerd. That's it. I love computers, and some people call me a computer nerd. And I love to dive very deep into stuff and do everything in that area. For example, AI right now. Last year was the topic of the metaverse. And now, because I did that, I see how things come together, metaverse and AI now, with generative AI. So I'm that deep diver. But then again, I'm also sometimes a little bit, things that are not in that focus there, I'm blending them out, and I'm just going down that road. But that also gives me the insights to talk very deeply with people around me about these topics, and get them inspired about stuff. And she was and is a person who says, Arno, you're the person who inspires. Now, try to put this also, of course, into a professional merit in a way, because there are lots of people, and I see this also in the replies and in the statistics about my posts on LinkedIn. There are so many people who get inspired who never answer back or something, which is fine. I know that, because I love to inspire them. Sure. And sometimes I see stuff popping up left and right, which eerily remind me of stuff I posted a couple of times before, arguments I gave or images I gave. I said AI would be the brush that paints the metaverse. That is something, I put out a couple of days ago, and it pops up here and there. And I wonder, did I really do this or not? I don't want to have, visions of grandeur, but it looks sometimes like, and I don't want to be big, but I want to see that what everybody does is kind of my footsteps somehow, and I inspire people. And I want to be true to that part of myself, which I wasn't in the beginning. I was a twin and was looking, orientating, yes, you have to be like him or like her. No, I am me, and I'm very confident with this, and I know that I still have to learn a lot, and I'm not perfect by any means, but I'm trying to get
Nobody
there.
is.
Sticking humble, and just go all the way through.
Well, let me tell you one thing. It's for the audience listening, Arno and I grew up together. We were best buddies in high school. We sat next to each other to the point that they had to separate us because, we're troublemakers. And after school, we hung out together. So I spent a lot of time with this guy, and that's shame on me, and I regret it, and I want to apologize. We hadn't talked since I left Germany, really, other than, communicating on LinkedIn and social media, which you could call it communication, but not in depth like right now. I'm so happy to see you do what you're doing, just because I know, maybe just as good as your wife, that you were born to do this. Because I remember you inspired me. I never told you that because I was, I guess, too young to understand it. Now in retrospect, thinking about it, and now being honest with myself and you always inspired me with your innovations, amazing ideas, outside of box thinking. So it's not surprising that you're into innovation and problem solving, because that's who you are. I can see that. And that's something that I can attest to. And so I'm so happy that you found your passion and you tuned out the noise from the outside, the naysayers making fun of you, from your early professor teacher making fun of you for being a blog writer, to people saying, oh, this is just a hobby, this is not a real job. And so many people have so many opinions. What I want the audience to know is nobody knows nothing about anything anyways. So you're better off just doing what you're passionate about and just doubling down on it, better even tripling down on it, no matter what people around you think, because only you know what makes you happy. Other people don't know what makes you happy because they don't even know you. So for me to see that you found your path is so exciting. I'm like getting goosebumps just talking about this. And I want to thank you for taking the time on a Sunday. I know it was hard to get together because we all have busy lives with family and work, but your passion shows, and coming in on a Sunday evening on my podcast and sharing your views and your insight on AI, which is a very hot topic right now, and no one better than you could give us an insight into it. So thank you. And I can't wait to chat with you more in private and then my future podcast. And so thank you so much, Arno. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, they can, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn and just chat me up. I'm open for every innovative and philosophical, ethical talk about almost all topics. Don't be afraid to contact me. We should do it.
Yeah, I will put your links down in the podcast caption. I will put the links for anybody that wants to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I don't have a newsletter. I don't have a account where I do business. I'm half private, half professionally on LinkedIn. So you can just call me there or chat me up there. No problem. Awesome. But Daria, it was of course very flattering what you just said, and I can only return that. We can only return that. We had so much fun back in the days in Cologne, and you were one of the, put it that way, one of the few people who still were, of course you were very smart already all the time, but who were easygoing enough before our school finals to go with me to Cologne and have parties and go to places to hang out and drink, where other people were just focused on their Abitur and not just, oh, I don't have time, I have to study. And that was so great to have you on board there and to, discover the way of young people at the time. So I can only return this to you to have very good impact on me on that as well.
Thank you. We sure had fun times. I miss those days. I can't believe they're so long ago. I feel now that the time, like using Einstein's relativity theory, it just the past 30 years almost feels like they didn't exist. Exactly, actually 30 years since we graduated from high school.
Yeah, we have a big anniversary this year, by the way, if you want to come over.
Yes, I'll be in Europe in June, on June 1st to 10th. I'm going on a trip with my wife, just me and my wife after a long time. And, but I have to make a trip back to Germany, just go down memory lane. I owe it to myself and to my friends, and it's definitely past due.
Yeah, definitely, man. Come by. We can discuss the details in private, obviously, not in your podcast.
Thank you so much, Arno. Don't go away. We'll chat. Everybody, thank you so much. And until next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.